So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. Today we are on the week 8, second last week of our prayers and meditations by the Mother. And we have this January 4 prayer by the Mother 1914. I hope you have gone through the transcript or the talk by Dr. Alok Pandey, and would request you by sharing your thoughts, your comments, extrapolations, reflections on the prayer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start.
Yes.
Yeah. So, one thing that really kind of stood out for me in this prayer was like how the contrast between the vigilance and, the efforts that is required to stay on the path, and yet on the other side, that faith in, that thy victory will be. I mean, it is there. I mean, it's like hard to put a finger on it, but on this path, how you have to do stuff, but there's something inside that needs to be rested. It's as if I do not parallel consciousness that on like kind of like say the Gita, that on the war grounds I have to act, knowing that whatever I'm doing, it's already decided and the big picture is already taken care of.
Yeah.
So that contrast was quite beautifully there, although one cannot fully get it, but still one can try to get it again and again. It helps.
Mm.
And so that was the main thing for me. And in addition, like the first paragraph, I didn't quite get it. I don't know if we are supposed to get it because it's about traditional yoga. But you know how they said we step out of the circle of nature in which soul is trapped, kind like I come out. If you could walk through the first
Yes.
paragraph, it's worth the while, then that would be great.
Yeah.
And another thing was that how clearly it's mentioned, and it is there in a lot of other things as well, that one has to know each and every consciousness. Like you cannot ignore one over the other. No, nothing is superior over the other.
Mm.
So that was that. And about this, like where they say that there are days when you feel dull and kind of that thing just engulfs. Like I remember growing up, like when I was a teenager, there actually used to be days, maybe once in a month or something, when I used to just feel clouded, like maybe the vision is hazy, and I used to very strongly feel that dullness, and I never knew what that was. Next day it would be okay by itself, but I would wake up and I would just be feeling a dullness. So when I read this, I was remembering that, but no, but I didn't know what to do about it. Just wait it out. But yeah, it was nice to see. And the visualization where they say that just quietly lie down, floating like a lily on a pool of water. That was also quite beautiful. And one could, I mean, just reading that line, there was something in me that was, kind of relaxing, that, yeah, the breath was better
Yeah.
and stuff. And yeah, I guess that's it from my side. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Yes. Anyone else?
I'll go, Monica.
Yes, Chitra.
Yeah, actually, this state I have gone through so many times.
Yeah.
After so many times, and for many years, I used to feel guilty also. Every
Mm.
time we are falling, and there is no, I mean, divine consciousness in us. But later, one thing I realized, because we felt uneasiness, actually, we are not in ordinary life. That gave me a lot of boost, actually. If
Mm.
we are in the ordinary life, we won't feel it at all. No, actually, why this question will this won't arise in us. So, like a fish out of water, I used to feel whenever I mingle with, all these materialistic tendencies with people, and talking about the cooking, for example,
Yeah.
talking about the food. Then after some time, I used to feel all my energies are washed out, actually. Then then again I will go and pray to mother, why I am falling to this condition again and again, please relieve me.
Yeah.
Then after some years, slowly, that that prevalence, no, that state actually, it became very reduced. I mean, then I could, I mean, even amidst those circumstances, I could
Yeah.
take a pause and I could, I mean, stabilize myself. That is very
Mm.
painful. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Shilpi, Preeti, Eric would like to share.
Monica, one thing, this food thing, I also forgot. It was
Yeah,
so
yeah.
dominant. It's like a joke for me now because, like compared to my family, like where I was born and brought up, and the one I got married into, like there's so much contrast between the importance on food. Like in my original home, it was like, you eat so that you can live. And here it's like you live so that you could eat, kind of a thing. So like when I hear conversations about food, something inside me kind of says like a chant that, kill me. Like I don't want to be here. But this again was so beautiful that I can hear everything. I mean, I've
Yeah,
made my peace with that. Like somehow it's
yeah,
like now the words don't enter me most of the time. Sometimes when it gets too much, they still do.
yeah,
But this was beautiful that just, you just tell it to thee, right? Okay,
yeah.
here, you take care of me. I don't want to. I mean, I don't get involved, which is great, but still, it's like it gets
It gets into
overwhelming that
you. Yes.
how is this a possibility that one can spend like
Mm.
so much time and effort and energy just on food? And here there was also this mention that even unwantingly, like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
it's that was very interesting because here in my family I see there's a lot of interest, right? And they do it so okay. I mean, they are getting some fun out of it, good for them.
Mm.
But yeah, there have been cases where it just has become now a habit. कि ये तो, this is how it has to be done.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
so it was, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Shilpi.
No, no, just regarding food,
Yes,
I don't know. It can be, sorry, yeah, carry on, Shilpi.
go on. Finish your thought and then I can continue.
Yes, yes.
Regarding food, I don't know if, see, I mean, maybe I don't know. Mhm. With me, it is like maybe I spend a little more time or effort, I don't know, to very consciously have like healthy and, like balance, not in a crazy sense, but I mean, it will just be very simple thing, but then I would rather have something a little more lighter and
Mm-hmm.
quick to make. Even it will be tasty also, but that won't be so relevant. But sometimes one can get a little carried away towards that also.
Mm.
Sometimes I feel I can. Maybe
Mm.
because I've gone through an illness where I'm a little more particular about what to eat.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean not to spend so much energy on like then sitting and saying, "Oh, it's tasty. Oh, yum, that was like superb," and oh, like, and the eyes are like popping out. मक्खन डाल डाल के आप मजे लेके जो खाते हैं, so yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Shilpi, you want to go next?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me get down. Okay. So, um, how like different phases and states of mind come and go,
Yeah.
but I feel like for the past few days I feel in a state, and when I read this prayer, I felt very resonant with that. So especially this part where the mother talks about materialistic thoughts and how they cloud you and how they weigh you down. So
Yeah.
these few lines here, this state is extremely painful and tiring, for nothing is more tiring than materialistic thoughts. And
Yeah.
the mind, worn out, suffers like a caged bird which cannot spread its wings and yet longs to be able to soar freely.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just feels like, I see maybe in every few days I repeat this sentiment that I feel this frustration. That I mean I can see such kind of thoughts. They come like a cloud and they just cover you almost. And then
Yes.
it's not like that it ends there. At the same time, the thicker the cover, the more you long for the other state, which is peace and clarity. So I
Yes.
feel like it's directly proportional. No? The more it clouds, the more you want the other state, which
Yes.
it seems like previously you had it a few days ago, a few weeks ago, you were right there, and now like this has come like a
Very
cyclone or
nice.
something.
Very nice. Yeah.
So I just, when I read this, I felt like, yes, that is what I may say that I'm currently feeling. And then when it is said materialistic thoughts, and it means like I've heard it from many teachers that we think, like thinking about the body or body's needs is materialistic, but everything, like just getting tangled up in thoughts and emotions are
Yeah.
also materialistic
Yes.
engagements, no?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, so that feels very like it weighs you down and it overwhelms. And then in the later part, when the mother says that perhaps it has its own use, which I
Exactly.
do not see, but then there is the faith that because it is there, so it must be having its use. And like
Yeah.
a fervent disciple at the feet of his master, I trust myself to thee and surrender to thy guidance,
Yeah.
sure of thy victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So there is this very important point, Shilpi, which I would like to maybe reiterate for everyone that you have shared. This thing that when we feel this clouded kind of consciousness, as if something is blocking the clear clarity, right? I think this is what Mother and Sri Aurobindo also refer to as the inconscient, that which is not fully conscious, and it does not have to be left like that, because it keeps on bringing itself again and again, right? It keeps on coming in my life again and again, no matter how many years of sadhana I may have done. So yes, it has its own purpose. Yet the thing that you mentioned, that when I am in this deep state of clouded consciousness, there this longing even becomes more fervent, that oh my god, 5 days ago I had this beautiful clarity, state of clarity. Why is it not there? Why is it not there? Now this is the thing, this is, I think this is a really nice catch here. So in that very moment when I am in a clouded state of consciousness, when mother talks about I lie with I lie like a child in your arms, what is mother, there are two three different ways of saying it. The one way that mother says it out is that I lie nestled in your arms, and then everything is fine, I know that everything is anyway fine. Now the other way of saying it is that you allow that state to be. You are not doing anything about it. You are not doing anything about confusion. You know that the confusion is there, and it's such a thick confusion that even when you do something, it's not helping. It's like a helpless state. So what do I do? In faith, obviously, in faith, I allow that confusion to be. I allow it to be. So what do we do when we remember and offer? I see that there is a confusion. Okay. I do not deny its presence. I acknowledge its presence. I see it for what it is. Yes, there is a cloudedness. Yes, there is a confusion. And mother, this belongs to you. So you are actually seeing the confusion and not do anything about it. You're resting in a rest which is always available at each and every moment. That rest is available to us, because we are never, as mother shares also in this prayer, that we are never ever far away from home. We are always home. Just because a wave of confusion has come, it does not mean that oh my god, where have I come, it feels like so overwhelming that it feels that I have gone far away from that state of clarity. But is that true? Is that true? Is that true? Can I just let that confusion be and rest in faith? Rest in faith. Yes.
So, Monica, can I ask a follow-up question here? So if you let that confusion be, and let's say the confusion is, let's say, a desire for something, right?
Okay.
So it arises and it kind of just grips you, no?
Grips you.
It
Yes.
just clouds you, and that is the thing that's kind of repeating in your consciousness, let's say 24/7 or whatever frequency. So now if you let it be, and if you, I mean, one way is of course you try to drive it away, and there is logical way to do it, because you know that it won't give you anything, even if that desire is full.
Yes.
Right? It
Yes.
won't give you anything.
Yes.
You know it.
Yes.
But if you let it be, then the tape recorder keeps playing. Maybe in 3 days, 4 days it will slow down, and in 1 week it will go away. So you're saying that you just let the tape recorder play.
Yes, exactly. So you let the tape recorder play, and you do something which you love to do. You don't stop your life just that the tape recorder is playing. The wave is playing itself out in the ocean, and it has full right to play itself out. But I don't have to do anything about it. I don't have to follow that wave. Oh my God, why are you here? How long will you be here? That wave has as much right to be here as myself. So why to shoo it away? And we have seen that shooing it away even makes us more miserable. So yes, just letting it be, just like I am there, she can be there, the desire can be there. I don't have to do anything about it. I can go about doing what I really love to do, at the same time. Yeah. Okay. So, any Eric, would you like to share now or later?
I'll share now.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The first thing that jumped out to me was when Dr. Pandi said this is a real-time yoga. I love just the phrase of that. Just the words were great, but then I was just feeling into what that meant for me. And yeah, for some reason, it just opened up all the distinctions. Like, it's not yoga on the mat or on the cushion. It's yoga all the time. And I realized that he used a lot of words that I felt like, oh, I think I've read that and heard that word before, but they were all words referring to experiences that I didn't really have. And
yeah,
or a lot of them were. And yeah, it made it so much more experiential, not something just to read about. It wasn't just philosophy. I spent a lot of time with philosophy. And I guess that's okay. He was saying that it's one thing to talk about the creation of food, but we can talk about the creation of the cosmos too. And I thought that was so neat. And he said it's great to talk about intellectual things. That's not material things. That's better in a way. But I've spent actually way too much time, perhaps, in the philosophical. And there's an experience behind all these philosophies I'm now realizing more and more to experience in the real time. And so that jumped out for me. And then at first when Mother said, speaking about the inner and the outer being the same, I didn't really understand that.
Okay.
But now I see that that's true. The things that used to frustrate me outside frustrate me less inside, even though those things on the outside may be just as bad or worse. And so that which appears to be the outside does appear to be more of a reflection of my own self. So much more than I had even possibly realized.
Yeah.
And then the last thought was about how Mother is so humble, and that she indicated there were actions that she hadn't consecrated. And
yeah.
It's like, wow, I'm not even aware of all of my actions, let alone having consecrated one or another of them. And so, and yet I can't also fall into dejection in a moment that I noticed that I wasn't consecrated. So, because that's another ego trip on the other side there. So, in the real time, I guess we're just right here. And yeah. That's what's coming to me now.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah, thank you, Eric. Yeah, Shilpi, I would also like to maybe add on a comment to the thing that desire is there, right? So I'm letting it be. I'm not following its action. We also have to see, it's very beautiful to see that the mind projects fulfillment in future, right? So what is the mind trying to tell me through that desire? That if the desire is fulfilled, I will feel better. I will feel home if the desire is fulfilled. If the desire is fulfilled, I will feel much, I will feel complete. This incompletion would not be there. This restlessness will not be there. But is that true? Is that true? We can ask this question also, that is that true, that is it true that whenever I follow a desire, I land up feeling complete? Is that true? What is the reality of it? And this is how the mind, as if it keeps on pushing us away from whatever life has for me right now, as if it is never allowing me to be in touch with the reality of life right now. Right now, what is there? So if we can also look at that, uh, just an invitation to look at that. Yeah, I've typed it for you.
Yeah, thanks, Monica.
Yeah. And then when I sink back into tune back using maybe my breath or just being here, then I see that yes, desires are there. Yes, I feel a feeling of incompletion. I feel a feeling of restlessness. Yet all of this is just a part of me. I am not all that. I am much, much, much beyond that. So I can still rest. Even those little beings, being there, I can still rest. I can still enjoy life. And they are allowed for as long as they want to stay. Yeah. Yes, I'm with you, Shilpi. Yes. That I'm totally with you in this movement when you say that temporary clarity is there. You're like really sunshine, no clouds. And then again, a moment of desire comes. And the thing is that we begin to fight against the desire. So there are three movements possible. One is I begin to fight against the desire. Oh my God, why is it still there? Why is it still there? Like ocean fighting against its own wave. By this time it should be gone. I've been in this place or that place, I've experienced so much of peace. Why the desire is bloody still there? And that we have seen that it leads to more and more frustration. It never leads us anywhere. So that is one movement. The other movement is I follow the desire. That also I have done, all of us have done. And we have seen, we have seen it, we have tasted that also. And the third movement is, which is rarely can be called a movement, is to let it be. Let the tape recorder, as you said, be on. And involve yourself with something which makes you feel alive. It can be there. It has full right to be there. It is like an abandoned child who wants to be held. So can the child just stay in this wholeness of life? Can the child just stay in this fullness of life? Yes, it can stay. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the transcript then. So I'll just cover what Taru was asking to be reflected upon. I'll just touch upon it maybe, and you people can add whatever you feel like adding. So uh, here Alokda is talking about the traditional yoga in the sense where the sadhu and munis will go out maybe in the forest, or try to run away from the world as it is, right? And also from the material self, like not giving much attention to the body, uh, not giving much attention to the bodily needs, the food and all that, right? Food, sleep, all that, not giving it much attention. So there, I think that is what Alokda is pointing here, that we step out of the circle of nature. So you are leaving the nature as it is. You are saying, I am the soul and I have full right to be free. I don't want to enter this play of Prakriti, and I want to just let it be how it is. The play of Prakriti can be whatever it is. I don't want to be there. I will rest in my soulness. I will rest in my Atman. So there we have seen these examples where yes, it is a possibility, but then the transformation of Prakriti does not happen. The transformation of our nature, our tendencies, our vrittis, as soon as I come back to the worldly plane, they will come back with even maybe more vigor, right? As long as I'm in the forest, I'm away from my loved ones, then I can be in a space where I can say, okay, I am the Atman, and I don't have to give attention to them, to the body. The body can be eaten up by ants. I don't want to even pay attention, right? So you have detached yourself from the body in that sense. You are not identified with the body, yet there is no transformation of the body. And Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about even the transformation at the physical level. So even the body has to let shine the shine the, or the the light of consciousness. As Mother talks about the new body, she talks about as it if it's a transparent body, where the light of divine is shining through the cells of the body. So this is a different type of yoga. I think that is what uh, here Alokda wanted to hint at. Yes. And then he shares in the next paragraph that in this yoga, which is a real time yoga, as Eric was also referring to it, that it's a real yoga, it's a real, all life, all the movements of life are yoga. The movement of desire is also a part of yoga. I don't have to say that I am a sadhak and the desire cannot come into me. It is not possible. We cannot do yoga like that. So the desire can stay. I will nestle in myself in the arms of the mother. I will nestle myself in faith. The desire can stay. And slowly we see that we rest more and more in the faith, rather than letting ourselves fight against these desires. They are a big challenge. They are there for the whole humanity. They are there, the desires. And Mother and Sri Aurobindo even talk about that what we refer to in general sense as desire soul, the one full of ambitions and hopes and dreams and fantasies and desires of all kinds. Mother and Sri Aurobindo refer to this as the desire soul, and then they also talk about the movement towards the true soul that we are, which is resting in faith. Not following all the impulsions of the desires. And when we remember and offer, when I acknowledge that yes, Mother, the desire is there, and this belongs to you, I offer it to thee, right? Then what are we doing? We are constantly acknowledging its presence. That is what our task is. Yes, you are there. Yes, you are there. I am not defined by you, so you can be there, right? And that is what the yoga is. This integral yoga is looking deeper and deeper into each and every movement of life, not trying to shoo it away, not trying to run away from it, not trying to have a goody goody image of myself that I am this lightened up one or enlightened one, and there is no darkness in me. It is not a possibility. One who clearly knows would know that it is not a possibility. It's a lifetime of a process, right? Yes. So that's why he says that one has to enter into all states of consciousness, not only craving for clarity. Confusion is also welcome. It is there for a reason, as Mother says here. Maybe there is a reason for it. I don't know. We don't know the larger picture. In how many ways divine kind of chisels us, perfects us, make finer and refiner to serve as its instrument. How do we know that confusion is not serving me well? I cannot know. If I look at myself, if talking out of personal experiences, the more I have plunged into confusions, always a deeper connection with life I have felt, more groundedness I have felt. So confusion is also there for a reason. Otherwise the ego takes it on itself that I am the one who has really clarified its mind by reading and listening to all the scriptures, and nothing can happen to me. And there, one strike and you go down in the dumps. So ego has its own way to put everything as a badge on itself. So, and that's why these states, kind of come in between. They kind of ground us. Yeah. Yes, and so we have to enter all these states of consciousness so that our love, the love that we are, the light of consciousness that we are, can penetrate into each and every aspect of our being, what we call as ourselves. We don't even know how many parts and pieces are of what we call as ourselves. So the moment I am able to touch confusion, something happens to confusion, right? The confusion is touched by the light of consciousness that I am. Confusion is just wanting to be held, it wants to be touched with that love that we are. Only then the transformation can happen. Yeah. Yes, and there again, Alokdaya shares that how in Savitri it's referred to that, all these states have to be touched. The lower vital, the higher vital, the mental, the subconscious, the physical, all these have to be touched by the light of our consciousness. Yeah, this keeps us very, very grounded, it keeps us grounded. We don't have to fly up in the air that, okay, clarity achieved, light achieved, all the stuff done, right? Yeah, and then he refers to Vedic rishis, how they used to call, that they would also experience these alternating phases of light and darkness, as Shilpi was sharing, moments of clarity clouded by a lot of confusion, lots of desires coming up. Yes, yes, that is what the game is about, It's not about a monotonous, clarified life. That is what the adventure is of life, Yes, yes, Shilpi, please. So that's why Alokda shares here that yoga, in this yoga, one does not remain all the time in the same state of consciousness. It is a real time yoga. So if I'm just craving for all the beautiful, blissful experiences, this yoga will disappoint me. This will bring even more frustration into me. So better go somewhere else then. Yeah. Yes. And then begins the prayer. The tide of material thoughts lies away always in wait for the least weakness. The moment we let it in, and then it enters like a friendly conversation, it enters, and then we land up feeling really kind of as if a burden, a load has been put on my light, or the lightness or clarity that was there. And Alokda shares that this is the quality of the matter right now. The matter also has to undergo transformation. But right now, the quality of matter is such that it is dumb and inert. We have also read in Savitri that fathomless zero, that dumbness of the matter. And the more we talk about the material, the more I talk about even my own past and future and all that, because that is arising up uh, from my body, right? Because I feel that I am this body, I have a past, I have a future, these are my relationships. The more we talk about all that, it dumps us back into the matter. And there at times it is also full of purpose, because when I am dumped there, then I uncover maybe more depths within me, but it lets my flame sink. So one has to put effort again, or maybe rest in our own essential nature, remind ourselves of the essential nature, that this is not me, this is not me, neti neti, as is said in Vedanta, that yes, these are all movements of life, they are all allowed, yet this is not me, I am something much much beyond than all these movements. So one has to remind oneself again, otherwise the matter really kind of dumbs the consciousness, the light of consciousness. And if we relax our vigilance even for a moment, if we are negligent to however small an extent, it rushes forward and invades us from all sides, submerging sometimes under its heavy flood, the result of innumerable efforts. We have felt, all of us have felt this in our lives. We see that there are states in our life where we feel so clouded, so like as if, you don't know what to do, where to go, because owing to the fact that I have indulged too much in my minus, that this is me, this is how I want to live, and this is not happening. Oh my God, this is so bad. Even that is also of material nature, because that is again and again talking about me as a separate entity, as the one who has a separate body. This is me. So that is also of a materialistic nature. And the more I am full of myself, the more I am full of meanness, the more I am full of I-ness, the more I will see this effects in my being, that I am pulled into that darkness again and again. Yet having said that, even that darkness will be used as a stepping stone, because the divine uses everything as a stepping stone towards progress. Yeah. And then, these talks about the food, how was the food, who made it, what this should be added and that should be added, all the time talking about this. Then the little comforts of life, this is lacking, that is lacking, the sleep, all the material events, that person said that and that person should not have said that. All this is belonging to just the material domain. And when I indulge myself into all that, then I see that I become too much identified, as if the ocean is becoming identified with one particular wave, which is matter. That wave is matter. And then it rules me so heavily that it dumbs my essence. It dumbs in that moment, in those phases of life. I feel a dumbness. Yeah. And then one has to disengage, one has to remember. So I enter into this forgetfulness, and then I have to remember. Nothing has to be done. I just have to be in remembrance that yes, I am not this, I am not this. Yes, the darkness may be there, yet I am not this. It can stay. And invest yourself, then invest my time and energy in what makes me feel vast, what makes me feel alive, what makes me feel full of love. Invest more time than in this dumbness. So mother shares ahead, then the being enters into a sort of torpor. Its physical needs of food and sleep increase. Its intelligence is obscured, its inner vision is veiled, and in spite of its feeling little real interest in these superficial activities, they occupy it almost exclusively. So as if I am these talks of material or thoughts of material domain are going on in my head again and again in a loop. I am trying to shoo it away, yet they are not going, and they are still there, hanging. So they are occupying me exclusively. I am just dumbed by that, as if a stone has been kept on me. Now, this condition is very troublesome and fatiguing. For nothing is more fatiguing than thoughts about material things. And the varied mind suffers like a caged bird, unable to spread its wings, yet aspiring for the power to take its free flight. So the longing that Shilpi was referring to. So I am just as if I am frustrated that what to do. There's so much of heaviness here. I don't feel fine. I feel very uneasy, and this uneasiness is also a reflection of losing touch with the remembrance of our vastness, right? That is the uneasiness that mother refers to, that the moment I feel an unease, I become aware of it, that something, I'm identifying myself with something which I should not be identifying myself with, right? And one suffers because the nature of the soul by itself is limitless. We also read in Savitri, the flight of the hawk, the golden hawk that cannot traverse the skies anymore because the animal uh, kind of browses in this sacred fence you are reading that day. So the nature of the soul is limitless, and that's why if I feel too limited by identifying myself to a limited pattern or tendency or a wave in life, I feel suffocated. I feel suffocated, and that is a signal that's not my true essence. That's not my true essence. It's not my true identity. So one remembers again, one forgets and then one remembers again, right? And then one rests in that remembrance. And then mother also shares that, even when mother used to meet sadhaks and disciples and people who used to come from outside and meet the mother would say that, even I also feel a kind of a tiredness talking to those people who just, talk about material aspects of life. So I feel a lot of tiredness owing to that conversation. So it's a very natural phenomenon to happen. Uh, Nothing one that is specially happening to us only. Yes. And then Alokda here shares, then one has to put a little effort to light up the fire again. Now, this effort, I would call this effort mostly as a remembrance. Anything that reminds me of who I truly am. It may be words of from a book, it may be words from a guru, a master, wherever, it may be words of a friend. Anything that reminds me that this is not me, this is just a part which has come and which will go away, right? And then I remember who I truly am. Who I truly am is not defined by these situations at all. Just like Hanuman, Hanuman had to be reminded that he could fly. He got this shrap from a rishi that you would forget that you can fly. So when he had to go to Lanka to give this ring to Mother Sita, he had to be reminded that Hanuman, you can fly. So that's how we also need remembrance, of our own flights that we can take, our own freedom, our own vastness, our own wideness. We need to be reminded again and again, because forgetfulness is a part of matter. Forgetfulness is a nature of matter that we have right now. And then mother says, very in humbleness, mother says that perhaps in this condition there is a utility which I do not see. Just as we were sharing earlier, that each and everything that happens in our lives, it is then made as a stepping stone by the divine, if one has the right attitude, that, making us better and better instrument for its purpose. So we don't even know if darkness, challenges, the desires coming up again, they have a particular reason. Because the more I plunge into my pain, the more I experience pain, I see that I connect with more humanity, I connect with the pain of others. The more I get intimate with my own desires, I see that I can, as if I can relate with the other person feeling that desire. So we connect, we become one with each other. The more we connect with our own darknesses, they give us a platform to connect with the whole of humanity. So yes, mother says that there might be also here a utility which I do not see at this present moment. And mother says that in any case, I do not struggle at all. I think this is a beautiful attitude, that to let it be, to let it be, to see for what it is and to let it be. Not to poke a finger into its being, not to ask again and again, oh confusion, why are you there? Oh darkness, why are you there? We have read so many prayers of the mother. Mother is inquisitive, mother is curious, yes, but mother is not saying that, oh my God, why are you here? At the end of every prayer, mother is resting in faith. At the end of each prayer, mother is nestling herself in the arms of the divine, knowing in certitude that thy victory is for sure won. Thy victory is sure. So I can better rest, because that is the best place I can be. And personally I see that whenever confusions or things which we are not able to connect dots to in life, they crowd us, they cloud us. I have seen for myself that I've never been able to put 2 plus 2 equal to 4 or 2 plus 3 equal to 5 in my own life, regarding to my life movements. And whenever confusion is really dark and cloudy, this is actually the best, I feel, state to be, that to nestle oneself in the arms of the divine, to rest in faith and peace, that yes, all is well, all is taken care of, and this is just a phase. We can let it stay. And then you don't even realize how the cloud disappears. It just disappears in no time. And there you are back again, being thankful, grateful for the aliveness, which you were not able to when the cloudness or the cloudy character was there. So that nestling in the arms is a beautiful attitude, and if one can do that, I think that really helps us kind of go through these movements of life, because not all the time mind knows what is going on in life. Everything is not in the grasps of mind. The relationships are not in the grasps of mind. The life movements, the tragic events, they are not in the grasps of mind. You cannot put 2 plus 2 there. It cannot happen. And that's why it boggles up the mind. And that's why surrender comes very quickly in these tragic, after these tragic movements, because you realize the futility of the mind, right? Yeah. So mother says that in any case, I do not struggle at all, and like a child in the arms of its mother, like a fervent disciple at the feet of his master, I confide in thee and surrender myself to thy guidance, sure of thy victory. So mother is saying that there I find rest, there I find rest. I'm sure of your victory, and hence I can rest. I don't have to fight this confusion. It is not needed. This is what to be done. This is so beautiful and reassuring. If one can remind oneself again and again of this, that no matter how dark a challenge one is going through, one can always rest in faith. Rest in faith, sure of what the divine plan is always the best plan. Is always the best plan. Yes. And then again that picture of a water lily floating on a pool of water, like really a relaxed state of being that one can be in the middle of confusions of life, in the middle of being thrown here and there by the desires. The desires are there, yet I can rest. Yet I can rest. It is a possibility. And I think the picture of lotus is really a beautiful image, that lotus begins to draw its nutrition from the mud water that it is there, the drain water that it is there in. And still it is so beautiful and elegant. It wants to tell us, as if the nature wants to tell us something through it. That in the middle of dirt and dust, so-called dirt and dust, you can be resting in faith. You can be resting in peace. There's nothing that has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. The divine plan is still there in action. So that really reassures one going through these movements of life. Yes. And then in the last paragraph, Alukda talks about, that uh, a very drastically sad attitude can be that, you follow this impulse, you follow that impulse, and then you say that, oh my God, I am a sinner. How could I do that? How could I do that? That is contrary to fate, because that leads us more and more in a trap. It's like a really big trap that we get into, that I cannot do it. Nothing can be fixed in me, and then really we get into lots of pessimism, from where it's very hard then to get out, very hard to get out of that. So instead of that, when I recognize a movement in me which is a so-called negative movement, for example, it's just a label that we put on that it's a negative impulsion, even that is okay. I can still rest the impulsion being there. It does not make me a bad guy. And why we put these images on ourselves is that the very fact that if I have a blissful spiritual experience, the ego takes it as a badge of honor, that hey, I am the one who has done that. So I am the good guy who has been doing sadhana for so many years, and this is my award, right? So I put a badge on myself. And the moment I am put down in the dump of anger, of hate, of anything, there I put another label that I must be a bad guy, right? So this, we keep on grinding ourselves between the image of good guy and the bad guy, and the good guy and the bad guy, which is actually not needed at all. What is needed is remember and offer, remember and offer. Just that. Acknowledge the presence, and that's it. You go about doing what you love to do. You go about living, being more alive to the movements of life. Yes. Yes, and in the last paragraph also, Alukda is reminding us or of the first prayer that we took, November 2, 1912, where Mother is saying that yes, I see that there are so many movements in my day-to-day life which I forget. I'm not able to remember and offer. I'm not able to consecrate it to Thee. And then what is the attitude that Mother takes here? Mother says that it seems to me at times ridiculous, childish, or even blameworthy. At times I become sad for a moment that, oh my God, how could I do that? I become sad, but that's only a moment until I dive into Thee, and there, losing myself with a child's confidence, await from Thee the inspiration and strength needed to set right the error in me. So she is not spending a lot of time in the sadness. Why could I do that? How could I do that? She's not going there at all. This is the attitude. And this is a beautiful, effortless attitude, if one can say, that you notice a movement, you notice that it was not a consecrated movement, one just was carried away or whatever happened, and then one relaxes again in the certitude of faith, in the certitude that yes, I am held, I am forever held, I am forever safe. And there one begins again, the baby step. Yes. Yeah. And then Alokda also shares about creating of an ashram, why Mother created an ashram where we don't have to attend all the time to the material needs, throughout the day, that, all the time everyone is cooking and bathing and all that. So there is a common place where you can eat and sit and do, the chatting or whatever. And then you don't have to focus much on material needs throughout the day. That's, and the pressure of consciousness, the pressure of the divine force is all the time there in that field where the ashram is, which is propelling you to further shed the veils of ignorance and realize your true nature. Further move into more and more remembrance rather than forgetfulness, like owing to that pressure of the divine force. Yeah. When I'm talking somehow, I don't know if you guys have heard Sumitra Basu. I think once Dr. Anand Reddy referred to him as Duranto Express, that he just starts and then goes on and on and on. So I also just felt like that. I just got reminded of Dr. Sumitra Basu. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And any comments? I think, yeah, he was something. That was something one needed to, really catch up with his pace. Yeah. Okay, any comments so far? Else we read the prayer then. Now this is really nice, in the last paragraph, the yellow marked portion, she's saying that uh, when we get too much into whatever happened and then we try to blame it on somebody else, right? This happened because of this and this person. I got dumped because of this and this person. There, lies the catch, because we have a tendency to take ourselves as the body and rest everything as the world. Like, I am the body, and beyond everything, beyond this body, lies what is not me, right? While if we go closer to our movements, we see that we are not even our own body, we are not even our own movements, which we call as our own. There is still an otherness to our own mind, our own thoughts, our own movements. So what is truly me, what is truly not me? There lies the catch, because this also is a great point for conflict in relationships, that this is the ending on me of me, and that is the starting of me. How dare you, right? So we recognize ourselves as the body, and then we create these distinctions, and we can forever are in a fight. The humanity has been forever in this fight of you and me, and India and Pakistan, or US and China, or these kind of things. So we make these virtual borders, which are not even borders, which are not true. They do not exist. It is just a line, mind made line that I have made, and I forever spend a lifetime kind of calculating it, recalculating it, and being manipulative about it. There is no end to that misery. There is no end to that misery. Yes, so here Alokda is reminding us that we don't have to go there, that who did what to me. Whatever happened, can I take it in the best possible attitude? Can I rest in faith? Can I rest in assurance? And can I also observe, if possible, the movements of life? Because that is what is fun, that is what is adventure. I'm not a stone, I am a living human being. There is a aliveness present to me. So can I become alive through those movements, also? Yes.
Yeah, Monica, I also have some.
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't have to say anything else. So whoever wants to share anything, or maybe if not share anything, then read.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I think there was something wrong. Right. I was saying that I also have something to share on those last lines,
Yeah.
the ones that were highlighted. It's like how, like, if I look at my own life, like the first half almost was just spent in blame, right? Like, I am in this situation because of so and so, like, my parents didn't do this, or that person didn't do this. So I feel like as if almost, I'm again putting just images and limitations, but the first real jolt was when I realized it's all me. Like nobody could have done anything if I would have not let it happen, kind of a thing. So again, this thing that you are involved,
Sorry,
right?
Taru, I lost you in between. I lost you. So you said the first real jolt was, can you come again
When
from
I
there?
realized that I am the source, like
Mm-hmm.
I let anything or everything happen, and nothing could have happened without my consent. So this based on something within us, it's like it felt like there's no drama, right? Like there's so much kind of, that guilt identification and victim identification.
Yeah.
So this line is just, kind of going through that. Ki stop kind of the drama. It's all you.
Yeah.
It's origin from you. It's kind of because of you. So let's move on now. Let's
Yeah.
stop kind of
Yeah.
blaming people and things and cut
Yes.
to the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that also really helps us reclaim our power back. One really feels connected to a deeper strength if one takes all the, as if I'm giving out threads to everybody, right? As if I'm giving one thread to this person, that thread to that person. And once I became really conscious of what you are saying, that yes, if not for my consent, this would not have happened. The moment I do that, as if all the power comes back to me, as if I reclaim my power back, which
Yeah.
where I was feeling so lost and drained of energy and power.
Yeah. And this thing I actually also feel like, in my, like when my brother passed on, like
Hmm.
it was a natural accident. So
Yeah.
part of me was so happy that, as a family, we didn't need to waste so much time in blaming
Blaming.
someone.
Yeah.
That kind of, and it's like for other people, it was like, I can't even blame. Who do I blame?
Yeah.
But overall, you see, it really cut down a lot of, unwanted time waste in
Hmm.
saying it's happened because of that or this or that. So
Yeah.
again, this thing really helps in keeping you on track and not going here and
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yes. So who would like to read out the prayer?
If there's nobody, I can go. Otherwise, if somebody wants to, please do.
Yeah, I am open to each one of you.
Shilpi, would you want to go ahead?
शिल्पी चली गई थी. I think she
अरे
went.
चली गई. Oh,
हाँ.
GS is Chitra ji. Sorry, I thought it's Shilpi Gupta. So
Yeah.
I'll only go. So January 4th, 1914, the tide of material the tide of material thoughts lies always in wait for the least weakness, and if we relax our vigilance even for a moment, if we are negligent to however small an extent, it rushes forward and invades us from all sides, submerging sometimes under its heavy flood, the result of innumerable efforts. Then the being enters into a sort of torpor, its physical needs of food and sleep increase, its intelligence is obscured, its inner vision is veiled, and in spite of its feeling little real interest in these superficial activities, they occupy it almost exclusively. This condition is very troublesome and fatiguing, for nothing is more fatiguing than thoughts about material things, and the wearied mind suffers like a caged bird, unable to spread its wing, yet aspiring for the power to take its free flight. But perhaps in this condition there is a utility which I do not see. In any case, I do not struggle at all, and like a child in the arms of its mother, like a fervent disciple at the feet of his master, I confide in thee and surrender myself to thy guidance, sure of thy victory.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining.
Monica, one thing, this word submerging.
Uh-huh.
This also I found it very beautiful because lot of times, what I've heard is कि if you make one mistake,
Mm-hmm.
then, a lot of all your stuff is, kind of destroyed or so the submerge has that thing that, something has come over and it has the thing to go down back as well, right? Say if a high tide comes and it can go back.
Yeah.
So this also I felt that when I was reading.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The Monica, as you told, no, that you be with the confusion,
Yeah.
and then that is a new thing for me actually, because I used to be with the confusion. It will subside for only after 2 or 3 days, but
Mm.
that state itself will, I mean, give me guilty feeling. Why are you lingering in that state again and again? But now
Yeah.
I understood. Yeah, now I understood. So we can surrender and be with that state and do all the works. Yeah,
Yes. Beautiful.
that is a new thing for me. Yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you, Monica.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is one line that once Taru had shared, that mother had shared, that we are more than our experiences, right? So even when confusion is happening, I am more than the confusion. So then the
Yes.
confusion also can stay like a little kid in my room, right?
Yeah.
And I can go about by doing whatever I want to do, right? Yeah, that is actually very liberating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah.